speaker of the second session post-lunch.
Uh, let me start by thanking Kapil and his center for organizing something like this, and on a special day like 9th August. Before I start sharing few things which I planned I will share with you, let me make some remarks on what I heard in the morning when I was here. First of all, and this is something which I keep engaging with Kapil all the time. I don't share the sort of cynicism which some of us have, neither about present nor about past. There are lots of things which actually didn't happen in the past, which should have happened. There are lots of things which are not happening today according to our needs and requirements or liking, etc. In both the cases, like in the past, there is so much which has been done in the past 70 years. So much which still need to be done. There are so many schools of historiography, history writing. Some new, some old, some nationalist, Marxist, subaltern, lots of them which have come up, and they have used their own methods and emphasis respectively, or choices, priorities, and they have done it very well, some of them. Some are unattached scholars who have done great work. So I believe that a lot has been done already, but still a lot need to be done. So one should actually begin with an idea that there is huge scope still left in the past to explore, to unravel. We should do it, instead of just saying that we actually didn't do anything. No, nothing happened. No, that is something which is actually disturbing. We should actually not follow that, and because it serves no purpose at all. Because it's always better to look forward instead of look backward with some disappointment at the past. So that is one thing. Second, this is something which has actually come out in my own work on Bhagat Singh and the revolutionaries, particularly this phase of 1920s. And before I start, let me emphasize on the importance of this decade called 1920s. Because for freedom struggle, 1920s was actually a very, very important decade in our freedom struggle. It is important on several counts. Like, it begins with non-cooperation movement. It sees the rise of the right wing RSS in 1925. It sees the rise of left, Communist Party of India in 1925. It sees the emergence of a new revolutionary movement with a new character altogether. Revolutionary movement itself was not new, but it was a movement with a new emphasis, new choices, new ideological underpinnings. So that was something very, very special. Then we have the emergence of another rabid communal organization like Tablighi Jamaat in the late 1920s, which is again a very important factor, which happened just here close by in Mewat region, and that continues till today. So we have these various streams, left, right of both, and India as a nation actually is coping with both of them till today. Good or bad, whatever it is, that is all for all of us to see. So 1920s is actually an important decade. When we talk of revolutionary movement, we know that Congress party, and this is actually a general understanding, and when we talk of freedom struggle, we actually end up with Congress, and talking about various Gandhian movements, etc., which is fine, because it was a mainstream party which was in the vanguard of freedom struggle. But as the objective of today's program is, there were lots of other streams which worked along with the Congress. And when we say worked along with the Congress, we need to realize, and I say it with a lot of confidence regarding the revolutionaries, I'm not sure about others, and which is that the Congress party, despite disagreements with the revolutionaries. Revolutionaries themselves of the 1920s disagreed with Congress ideologically on so many issues, but the relationship was very porous. Like if you look at all of them, like right from Bhagat Singh to Chandrasekhar Azad and all of them, most of them actually began with as volunteers of the Congress party, the non-cooperation movement, came out of it. They engaged with the Congress leaders all through, right till the end of their lives, including Azad and Bhagat Singh both. There were lots of congressmen, if you look at it, lots of congressmen who had such deep association with all of them, and this has actually, it came out in my work as well, but it has come out in much more detail in the latest work of Kama MacLean. Kama MacLean has done a beautiful book on the revolutionary movement, history of revolutionary movement between two world wars, where actually she emphasizes on this particular revolutionary group. And she very clearly, through all sorts of new sources like posters and pamphlets and leaflets and oral history, she's using very unorthodox source material, not only archival sources, to establish how closely these two organizations, HSRA and Congress, they were actually linked. The relations were so porous, they actually exchanged so much despite disagreements. The issue of violence and non-violence, which is raised again and again as a binary of our freedom struggle, was actually confined to Gandhi alone. I don't think any other congressman had any serious attachment to that. Attachment in the sense, it was not a moral prerogative for all of them. For Gandhi, it was a fetish, it was a moral prerogative, it was a moral imperative. Others actually didn't take it that way, and it comes out in so many, you look at records, you will find from Nehru, Bose to leaders at state level, Ganesh Shankar Vidyarthi in UP, and so many others you can find in up to Yusuf Mehrali in Bombay, and so many, that number of congressmen at senior level and state level and district level who had no problem with this issue. For them, violence, non-violence was a matter of strategy. It was not a moral imperative. As a strategy, it can be used whenever it is required. Use violence or use non-violence. And this is what we find with the revolutionaries also. Bhagat Singh actually used a pistol to kill Saunders along with his other friends. When they were in prison, they used soul force. They used hunger strike as a weapon, which was a very Gandhian technique. And that's what they said so many times, that we are using soul force, we are using hunger strike as a weapon to actually achieve, to gain to pressurize the British government to agree to our demands. So this was a strategy for most of them, which was used whatever strategy was required. So the whole issue, which we mostly look at it today, we look at the past of that period and start actually talking in terms of binaries without even realizing that the period itself, if you look at the sources, if you look at the records, if you look at the usual archival sources or books or pamphlets, leaflets, etc., you will find that this relationship was more nuanced. One cannot really look at it in just black and white. There were lots of other things which one can find over there. So it is a revolutionary stream of our freedom struggle, which is different from Congress, of course, but it was so closely aligned with it. Second, which is something which I have tried to raise in my work as well, and I keep emphasizing that our revolutionary struggle, when we look at our revolutionary icons and revolutionary struggle, we just can't look at them as just nationalist icons, at least for this period. I can say for sure about Bhagat Singh and his other comrades, quite a few of them, Bhagwati Charan, Vora, Sukhdev, etc. They were ideologues. They were committed to a certain worldview. They had an idea of India. They knew what they are actually fighting for, which they spelt out in their writings, in their pamphlets. Because the good thing about somebody like Bhagat Singh is that he left so much literature, so much to read, so much to understand his mind. Unfortunately, we don't care to read him. We just don't read, we just use him as a martyr, which is fine. I have no problem with that, and one shouldn't have any problem. The point is, martyrdom is not enough, because we have two other martyrs along with him who died the same day. There were martyrs before him. There were so many martyrs after him. But why Bhagat Singh? Bhagat Singh was special because he was an intellectual. He was a revolutionary intellectual. He left behind a legacy of freedom struggle, which is a framework, an alternative framework to the so-called mainstream Gandhian framework or Congress framework. Though they participated in so many movements, they had so many agreements, but there were so many disagreements. And those disagreements were reflected in the manifestos. They came out again and again in detail, where they spelt out that they want a government of 98% Indians, not 2% elite. You know, that is very clearly spelled out, that there should be a participation of 98% Indians. There should be no oppression. There should be no oppression of man by man. So this is something which is very, very distinctively clear in most of their writings. So when we see this stream as different from Congress, we don't have to see it only as a strategy that they used violence. That is not enough. They had an ideological framework which actually varied, which actually differed from the Congress mainstream framework. So that is something which we need to keep in mind. And unfortunately, we just don't care to look at it. Now, when we talk of, like, for example, Bhagat Singh, if you look at him as an ideologue, look at the man who was, like, he was 21, 19 or 18 when we see his writings in a journal called Kirti, which used to come out from Amritsar. In those issues of Kirti in 1928, 1927, 28, 29, even 26, he chose to write on issues which are so contemporaneous in their significance, importance today, like issue of caste, issue of untouchability, communalism, role of press in the media, how the press has actually been bought over by the British, bought over by the elite. So he's talking about that control of the government over media, how the media has been bought over. So this is an issue which he's actually raising in pre-independence times, 1928. So these are things which we need to remember about Bhagat Singh, not just martyrdom. That is something so significant. Like, for example, on untouchability, which is an issue which Swaraj also raised in the morning, Ambedkar's ideas about untouchability, etc. Now what he does when he writes about it, he says, why are we actually raising hue and cry about conversions, about all sorts of things? Don't we realize what we have done to a huge section of our population since ages? We have not given them rights, we have not given them equality, we have not given them respect, and we expect them to actually stay with us. We expect them not to be angry. We expect them not to be aggrieved. We expect them not to be raising complaints against society, etc. So these are issues, questions he's raising in that article. And then he says that what is this leadership of ours doing? And he chooses actually Madan Mohan Malviya, interestingly. He said, when they go and embrace a Dalit, an untouchable, in public, to emphasize on their rights, you know what they do? They go home and take bath along with the clothes on. This is what Bhagat Singh is writing in 1928. So he was so articulate and concerned about these issues that he openly, and he didn't even bother that he is commenting about a senior congressman. But he decided that he has to use examples which actually take some lesson forward. So these are issues which he raised, and there are so many other points he raises in that short 4-5 page article. Then he writes on, again, a very important problem we keep facing all the time, issue of communalism. And he again says, this communalism actually is an issue. Of course, lots of political parties are using religion to foment communalism, but Indian media, the press, has been very, very sensational. They use huge, big headlines, sensational headlines, to incite people to fight against each other, to kill each other, and to raise tempers. And so along with this, it's a big article he's trying to put forward and trying to engage with this issue. So these are ideas of the man who can be seen as an alternative stream in the freedom struggle, alternative to the mainstream Congress. And we don't need to really see him as alternative just as an individual, just as a revolutionary. We have to look at him as an ideologue, a man with ideas, a man with alternative ideas, who thought differently and who wanted a different India. And that's what he struggled for all his life. His prison diary, which is again a very important source of information about his ideological underpinnings, very clearly brings out what actually he stood for, what he read, what he found important, what he noted down. And it comes out very clearly that the man was not just fighting for the liberation of India. He had an international vision. He said we have to fight against imperialisms, not imperialism in India. So, which means he had a much broader outlook. And he did what he did and what he said before the Congress Party. Congress Party, as a mainstream political party, did not talk about fight against imperialisms outside India till then, when actually Bhagat Singh is talking about it. So, which means that he had a vision which was an international vision. He understood that India alone is not suffering from the imperialist oppression. There are so many other countries which need to be liberated, which need to be supported, and we need to speak about all of them. So this is the difference this is a sort of distinctiveness of this 1920s revolutionary struggle, which we don't find in the earlier phase. Earlier phase, and I didn't want to really go into that detail, earlier phase was actually dependent on, or mostly confined to, I'm not undermining it, it had its own importance, like from Ghadar to other individual acts of they used to be called terrorism, individual acts of violence. And like word terrorism itself, now let me say a few words about that, because that is debated again and again, especially in the context of Bhagat Singh, and I need to engage all the time in the media also. People talk about it. With the usage of terrorism, we find in the writings of Bhagat Singh himself, he says that I am not a terrorist. Maybe I was a terrorist in the beginning. He said, in the beginning, maybe I was a terrorist because I needed to terrorize the British, not the innocent human beings. I wanted to terrorize the British who had terrorized India. No, that is very clearly written about him. So look at the context. If he says that he is a terrorist, he calls himself a terrorist because he wanted to terrorize the British, who were terrorists for him. So in that context, he is trying to say, and then he is trying to dissociate himself from terrorism. He says, I used to be, but today I stand for mass mobilization of peasants, of youth, of workers against the British. And we have to get together. Individual acts of terrorism or violence will not actually do much good. We need to have a much wider base to bring down the British imperialist government. Now, in the earlier phase, when we have like revolutionaries like Saha, we have Madan Lal Dhingra, we have so many others. All of them were inspired by the love for the country, for the freedom. No, they didn't really stand for any ideological position because they didn't leave behind any literature. They left behind love for the country, which we all need to respect, and we all respect that. But Bhagat Singh and his associates departed from that in a very significant manner when they articulated a framework for future India. That is the difference. That framework didn't exist in the earlier phase. That was a very sketchy framework. Even Ghadar party had some leaflets. Lala Hardayal wrote a lot. But if you look at Lala Hardayal's writings, they begin with with an interesting article which came out in Modern Review, Karl Marx, a Modern Rishi. No? That's a beautiful article. I really loved it. And detailed about 8-9 pages, where he goes on to emphasize that what actually Karl Marx is for us. And Lala Hardayal was not a Marxist. No? But being in Europe and America and traveling all over for India's freedom, he found it necessary to raise this importance of Karl Marx in Indian context. And he tries to tell people that time has come that we need to forget our old rishis. No? They are not going to help us anymore. We need to venerate modern rishis like Karl Marx. No? So this is what Lala Hardayal actually thought of in 1907, 1908. That is the earlier phase of our revolutionary struggle. So something like this we surely have, but we don't have a full-fledged framework, manifesto of independent India, which revolutionaries of HSRA, of Hindustan Socialist Republican Association, left behind. And Bhagat Singh was the chief architect, including Bhagwati Charan Vora. Both of them, with the assistance of Sukhdev. Chandrasekhar Azad, obviously, as we know, was a supporter of all these three. He himself didn't write very much, but he was one of those who believed that this particular framework, most of these writings actually got vetted by Chandrasekhar Azad. No? They all, like philosophy of the bomb, was discussed with Chandrasekhar Azad. That is something very important, that he didn't write himself, but he used to listen to it and approve or disprove what is right, what is wrong. So on that count, he was a participant in this whole structure, this framework which they were trying to prepare for independent India. So the importance of this 1920s freedom struggle phase is that we find a concrete revolutionary program of change. And this is another big issue which Bhagat Singh dealt with in an article, again in Kirti, where he's trying to compare Subhash Chandra Bose and Jawaharlal Nehru. That's a very interesting piece. Like we keep hearing about the views of congressmen or leaders about revolutionaries, about Bhagat Singh. But we seldom see what these people actually felt about them. And this is one article which we find in 1928, where Bhagat Singh is writing about comparing these two, Bose and Nehru. He begins by saying that, oh, both of them are great leaders. They are young. They are actually icons of youth in India, because there was the Independence League which both of them had established, Nehru and Bose together. And Bhagat Singh felt that these two are the icons of youth in India. We need to look up to them. But there is a difference in both of them. One of them, Subhash Chandra Bose, according to him, was actually like the word he uses, and I'm using the word he has used, is that Bose actually is an emotional Bengali. He's an emotional Bengali. He's a romantic who looks to the past, and he wants to bring back the glories of the past. He talks about the past in the context of what is happening today. He's a reformist. There's another word he used. While Nehru is actually someone who wants to break with the past. And the word he uses is, he's a Yugantakari. No? He's a revolutionary. He wants to bring about a change, a structural change. So the youth of Punjab need to look up to somebody like Nehru who will actually break with the past. So this was his understanding of 1928, like as a young Sikh from Punjab. And he says Punjab actually is very backward. We don't think, we don't write. No, we don't have ideologues the way other states have. That was again very critical about his own community and state, etc. So here are two people whom we need to look up to, but our choice should be Nehru, because he is a Yugantakari. He wants a change. He wants a break from the past. So these are the views of these people who actually stood for an India which actually will be restructured, will be redone. Obviously, the India we got and the sort of government we got, I don't think Bhagat Singh would have been happy the way things have gone about, because this framework didn't really tally with the sort of framework, with the ideas which Bhagat Singh stood for. I don't have time to actually get into all that in detail, but there were ideas which he stood for which were negated completely because we didn't really follow that sort of framework. What we got, and that again is and I say it very often, that what Congress party gave to us, Congress party itself was actually a cocktail. It's a mix of left, right and center. It has always been. Till sometime, till they were out of power. Because there was just no left in it. There were so many right-wing people in this, so many left-wing, so many centrists. So it was never an ideology-driven party. Gandhian ideas were forgotten long back. They were mostly very vocational politicians who came in for convenience, and they all got together to run the party and run the government. Ideology-driven party is something different, and that was the strength and weakness of the Congress party, both. Now, for Bhagat Singh, that sort of governance, obviously, he really didn't look for that, where you have a cocktail, where you have a mix of all sorts of sorts of ideas, because he stood for a very, very distinctive, very, very clear alternative framework, where his idea of governance was surely not what we really got. Because, for example, that is again a very interesting thing in the context of communalism, which is again we keep facing all the time. During his time in 1926-27, when Naujawan Bharat Sabha, another big public platform he founded in Lahore, they spelled out its like membership conditions, etc., for the young who need to join it. They were very clear. That is one thing. The slogans they chose, and I'm raising this because we keep talking about slogans all the time these days, and there are slogans of somebody's choice, and the slogans of somebody else's choice. So we keep struggling with slogans. What Bhagat Singh did, and his Naujawan Bharat Sabha, the three slogans which were used in those times by the Congress in the Congress platforms were Har Har Mahadev, Sat Sri Akal, Nara Takbir. These were three. There were some changes here and there, some variations from different religions were used, but three main religions were represented in these three slogans. Bhagat Singh said, "What are you doing? We are not going to follow this. This means that you already assume that Indians are not actually one. No? They are three. We don't want to appease all these three. We need to use slogans which actually put them together. So use Inqilab Zindabad, use Down with Imperialism, Hindustan Zindabad. These are the slogans. So these are slogans which they used, and categorically gave statements that we will not use these three. These are divisive slogans. These are dividing the country. And so I raise this today because we keep raising these issues, either with Bharat Mata, either with Vande Mataram, all sorts of things. There are lots of politics goes on, without even realizing that no one slogan was actually loved by Indians. There were different slogans used at different times. And that need not be an issue to actually declare or to vet somebody's nationalism or idea of India or commitment to India or Indian nationality for that matter. We need to learn this from somebody like Bhagat Singh, who even told everybody, all Indians, that it's better to use something neutral so that it brings people together. It doesn't really take them away. So these are some ideas which we need to understand, we need to keep in mind, and we never care to actually to read or understand. Every year on 23rd March 1931, we remember somebody like Bhagat Singh with some Malyarpan, which is a usual program for an hour or so, and then just forget him for another 1 year. And we love to call him a martyr and a great nationalist, that's all. Because that is a very convenient way. That is very, very simple, convenient, and easy way to remember. It is difficult to cope with the ideological program, with the constructive program, ideological program, with the ideology, with the philosophy. That is something so difficult. So we really conveniently leave it aside. So that is something we need to understand when we talk of alternative or diverse streams of freedom struggle. And this is one major diverse stream of freedom struggle, which we need to remember not only as an activity, as a strategy to achieve Indian freedom, but as an ideological program, alternative ideological program of for our freedom struggle, for our independent India. Thank you. Thank you.
Before we go any further, I would request Director of School of Social Sciences, Professor Suraj Basu, to kindly present Professor Irfan Habib with a shawl and a gift on behalf of the department.
Also became a young grandpa today, yesterday.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your experiences and your intellect. And we shall be looking forward to hear you more